I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order so we can get started, as we do have a lot of introductions today. So I think that the first order of business is to have the new members introduce themselves and in what institution they're representing. And I know we have Dr. Carico on the line, and she is new to the system, and I look forward to meeting and working with you. So if you want to kick us off. First of all, welcome to Maryland. Spend your tax dollars here. It supports higher education. Eat lots of crabs and enjoy.
Well, I'm Candace Carico. I think I actually know many people on the call. Hello, Matt. Hello, Emily.
We cannot hear you very well.
Okay, if I speak up a little more loudly, can you hear me better? Okay, I'll use my teaching voice. So anyway, it's nice to see many of you again. Trish, nice to see you virtually. I know we've been email buddies before. I'm Tony Coleman's successor as the Associate Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs. For the next several months, though, I'll be hiring up. First of all, you may know that Corey Smith retired, and Tracy Jameson also. And so in this period, I'm so grateful to Dr. Darlene Smith, who will introduce herself, unless she's not letting new people. Darlene's going to be handling the program for Joe couldn't make it today, so I can introduce myself. And I will say that Joe's successor has been named, Dr. Allison Green, who Joe will continue.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Dr. Smith, Darlene Smith.
Hi, Darlene Smith.
You got it, but how do I down here?
Oh, how do I? Oh, how do you turn it down?
Yeah.
Yours looks different.
Is my voice too loud? Oh, okay. Prior to Candace arriving, I was the interim associate vice chancellor.
It looks different from mine. I guess that's why I'm kind of like puzzled. Sorry.
That's right.
Oh, independently of hearing you.
Okay, great. Thank you. And representing Morgan, I know we might as well introduce ourselves to everyone since we have so many new people.
Good morning. I'm representing Morgan State this morning. I am the interim associate vice president for academic affairs. I'm Phyllis Keys, and I started this last January, coming from finance.
Great, thank you. Micua, then Mac.
Good morning, Matt Power with Micua. It's good to be back after 3+ years. A lot has changed in higher ed since I left, and at the same time, not much has changed in higher ed since I left. So it's good to see all you good people again. Very happy to see you and to get a chance to work with you. Thanks.
Hey, Matt, if you would just spend a minute explaining what Micua is, because we have literally some new people to the state and the system, and I think it's always better to hear the passion from the individual as compared to me just saying, well, Micua stands for. So Matt.
Well, I'll give it my best passionate plea, Jim. MICUA is the Maryland Independent College and University Association, and we represent the independent nonprofit colleges in Maryland. So essentially, most of the non-USM schools, and most of them you can see on my background here. So we have a diverse group of schools throughout the state, 4 of them located in Baltimore City, from the Western Maryland over to the Eastern Shore. And we try and represent the private colleges collectively so that we can minimize the asks of both the executive and legislative branches on all fronts, and just coordinate some of the program approval activities, as well as work on Sellinger funding and capital funding as well. Thank you.
Great. And Dr. Carico, in the last 8 years, MICUA has made a significant effort and progress in narrowing the gaps of achievement between minorities and non-minorities and completion rates. And so it's been a real big lift. Also matching the state scholarships, so a student in greatest need can get up to almost $39,000 per year now if they demonstrate the need and academic qualifications.
Jim, we
why don't we
appreciate
move
your
on?
passion.
Yes, there you go. Let's move on to Dr. Phillips.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Welcome back, Matt. Good to see you again. My name is Brad Phillips. I'm Executive Director for the Maryland Association of Community Colleges. We are basically the association that does advocacy and policy work for the community colleges, much like MICUA does for their membership institutions. We work on operating budgets, policy issues, transfer concerns, a host of other issues as well. And glad to be on the call today.
And I'm Mac. I have to go ahead and talk a little bit about Brad in terms of working on the Promise Scholarship. Dr. Carrico, we're one of the very few states that provides Promise Scholarships, which are state scholarships up to $5,000 per year for students to attend the community colleges. So it's significant as a transfer element into all the 4 years. All right, let's move on to St. Mary's. Catherine.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Catherine Gantz. I hope you'll call me Katie. I've known some of you in other contexts. I've recently within the last 46 seconds, been appointed the new VPAA and Dean of Faculty at St. Mary's. So I'm pleased to be working with all of you. Thank you. I'd also really like to thank my colleague, Jeff Bird, who is currently the interim provost at St. Mary's and who has been working with you during the last so many months during the search. And again, I'm really delighted to join your company.
Great. I think that's the primary. Are there others on the call that would like to make any comments or introduce themselves?
I just want to say one more thing. I didn't realize Candace was on this call. Hello, Candace. Welcome to USM. I've known Candace for a number of years, so I'm thrilled, Candace, that you're at USM now.
Thanks, Brad. Yeah, I'm actually Secretary Fielder. I'm a veteran of Maryland higher ed. Once upon a time, I did many years at MHAC, and I was Chief of Staff at Notre Dame in Maryland for a while, and then I was Associate Provost at the University of Baltimore, so I've bumped around a bit.
Great. Well, we just have so much fun here getting ready to for opening comments. Just we're getting ready as the transition to the state is probably the biggest changes at the top levels from Attorney General, Governor, Lieutenant Governor, Treasurer, right on through a Comptroller. So significant changes and transition are still in motion. So when the dust settles, we will see how this goes. But I'm very excited for higher ed as this moves forward. So if I could get a motion to approve the November 14th minutes.
So moved.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. Second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Dr. Smith. Any discussions, corrections, or edits? If not, then they're approved. I'll assume that approved. And now we want to talk about the MSDE AIR request for blueprint focus groups on college readiness standards.
So Secretary, if you don't mind, I'd like to, thank
Please,
you.
Emily Dow, if you do not know her, I think everybody has at least heard of her, if not talked to her on this call. And go ahead, Emily.
Thank you, Secretary. Welcome to the new folks to our Segmental Advisory Council, and I look forward to working with you all. Let me introduce Dr. Duque. He is with MSDE. He reached out just a few weeks ago asking for some assistance with a blueprint related request that they have. They're working with a third-party vendor called AIR. So I'm going to turn the time over to Dr. Duque to describe what's going on with this. There is an ask to gather folks, and I figured instead of us doing our traditional memo, this merited maybe some further discussion. So I invited Dr. Duque to join us today to talk about that. And then, so really what we're trying to figure out is what our next steps are for you all as segmental leaders, what we can do to assist MSDE in this work and figure out next steps. So Dr. Duque, I'll turn the time over to you.
Thank you, Emily. As Emily said, I'm from MSDE. I'm in the Office of Research. I'm also joined by colleagues Chandra Hazlett in the Division of Assessment, Accountability, and Performance Reporting, as well as Phil Lasser, who's in the Office of the State Superintendent. We have a few slides to share just to walk through the overall study. But before I get into the slides, just want to say we're here basically for awareness. Many of you are probably already aware of the study that's happening, but we'd also like to get your feedback and about how we can best facilitate the study with your colleges and universities. So first, an overview. The blueprint defined the interim standard for college and career readiness. And the goal of this standard was to ensure students are leaving high school prepared for success, whether that be college, career. And in order to, again, it's an interim standard. So in order to come up with a more permanent one, they're going to examine two different things. So we put out an RFP last year and ended up selecting AIR, which is the American Institutes of Research. They're based in Arlington, Virginia, but they have offices across the country. So there are two parts of this study. The first is what they call a predictive validity study. So basically looking at the current CCR standard and seeing if it's reflective of whether students are successful in entry-level courses and post-secondary training. Then there's a second component, which is an alignment study of content and standards, looking at literacy and ELA and math for the same type of outcomes. Very broad overview of the timeline. So right now we're in the engagement study. So we sort of kicked off the study with AIR in December. So we've been meeting with them, determine next steps. They've been working, again, the first part of the study, predictive validity study, that depends on quantitative data, and they're working with the Maryland Longitudinal Data System Center. We come to you today, though, mostly about the second study, which is the content and standards alignment study. There is a quick timeline for different reasons that it will ultimately culminate in a final report in August of this year. So as I mentioned, we're here for engagement purposes and specifically around focus groups. So the study calls for focus groups with key post-secondary stakeholders. And the purpose of these focus groups is to add nuance to the expectations. So they're going to look at course descriptions, syllabi, and other materials. But they want to have some context for these materials. So they hope to conduct these focus groups to serve that purpose, as well as to identify alignment, misalignment areas, and to capture insights on readiness assessments. The focus groups will be virtual for flexibility and structured as role-alike groups. So basically you'll have people in similar roles within the focus groups. The findings will be triangulated, so cross-stakeholder groups, and then used as well to inform the quantitative predictive validity study. So the diagram on the right is just the current thinking. So looking at the different segments within Maryland, looking at advisors and staff, as well as administrations of deans, provosts, and DPs, trying to get a full picture of the standards. Some details I can share is AIR is anticipating inviting faculty from English, math, and science credit-bearing courses, as well as remedial courses, and certificate granting training courses for the focus groups, and they're going to group them by subject area. They are hoping to do the focus groups in February and into March. And again, as I said, virtually. AR is well versed in research, so they are saying These, the information gathered would only be used for research purposes. This is not part of an evaluation of any particular college. They may say 2-year and 4-year have different results. However, they will not name any individual institution in the final report. As I mentioned before, the data from the focus groups will give more context and nuance to CCR expectations in Maryland. And it will culminate in the final report in August 2023. Give you some contact information. I should say that basically all of the information from the previous slides are available in a 2-page memo, which I can share with Emily to distribute to the group. But in terms of AIR, the main contacts are Jessica Mason and Jordan Rickles, and then MSDE here. We would ask that if you reach out to them, you also include us, so myself as well as Phil Lasser and Chandra Hazlett. So that's all I had in terms of presentation. I'll stop presenting. I think we can take some questions. We didn't want to necessarily talk about the particular study, but we would like to focus on how we can best facilitate the study happening. If you need anything from us, who would be the best people to contact and things like that. I'll stop there.
Secretary?
Yeah, a couple quick questions, Matt. Could you go a little bit further in defining what nuanced means? And the second, as I read through that, I didn't see any section on recommendations that would be coming out of the AR group other than collecting and doing analysis. I'm curious about both.
To your first question, I think the nuance is around there's a concern that if you just look at, say, course syllabi, you're not going to get a full picture of what's being taught and what's being expected in the entry-level courses. So the focus groups would provide that context, sort of fill in the gaps that you might just not see in the syllabi. In terms of recommendations, I think the study mentioned sort of a misalignment and even misalignment. And so I think some of the it's hard to anticipate, but I think the recommendations would be just around the general field of CCR within the state. They're also looking at the measures in high school. So there's an potential alignment recommendations there as well.
And the other quick follow-up, does that include through the nuanced part, the identification of barriers for success for these students?
Certainly, certainly.
Dr. Caraco, Candace.
I think I'm not first in line, but I'm happy to defer to Brad first. Or I can go.
Yeah, you're right. If you're okay, we'll go over to Dr. Phillips. But I think he might be frozen.
Please call me Candace. I mean, so I have a number of questions. There are a lot of work that's been done through community groups. In fact, right now, some community college and public institution earlier are enabling to look at the transfers. And there's a statewide math group that's met for a long time. Been a group within the system. There's an English group that sees standards. So there's been a lot of work on line through higher ed.
I'm sorry, I'm having trouble hearing.
Okay, I'll try again. There's the abbreviated version is there's been a lot of work on higher ed side with affinity groups, looking at alignment. And so I just wondered how AIR might, if there are any plans yet to tap into some of that work. My colleague Nancy Shapiro is not on the call, but she's been working with a lot of Q20 folks. So that's some place where we want AIR to be aware of that work and to see a lot of the product of that work that's gone on years.
So let me answer that. So Matt, I think we should be aware as we try to figure out how to coordinate all of this that USM and the community colleges, they have these affinity groups that work on these issues already. Those groups, Candace, Brad, correct me if I'm wrong, might be the best starting point to tap into because this work has been already ongoing. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm on day 14 in the position today, so I'm still kind of learning which groups are doing what. There are other groups that preceded those, just MAC and USM affinity groups, specifically around math and English. And so, for example, there's something called the statewide math group. There might even be independents on that, I can guess that. And so they often talk about math alignment readiness. So want to keep that in mind. And then there was also a group called that worked on the standards for C paper, first year writing program. And so I need to talk to Nancy Shapiro. She's somebody we want to pull into this conversation to see where that group is and what we can do. So there's been a lot of work previously about college readiness, so I wouldn't want that to be lost.
I've noted that, Candace, for how we kind of circulate this out and get the AIR group, all the right people at the table. So thank you. Yeah. Brad?
Yeah, thank you. I hope you all can hear me okay. I kind of have a two-part question. The first question is on the slide that you showed us first, you said you're looking at the current CCR standard, interim standard. Is that the current interim CCR standard that the community colleges are using with their local school systems? Or is this one that MSDE has on their website? And I'll follow up after that in a minute.
I'm referring to the one that the blueprint outlined. So an interim, it was basically 750 on ELA and Algebra 1 high school assessments.
Okay. I think it was in
That's
2013.
That's only one component of the other study, but.
Well, it's a important topic in so many ways because community colleges have partnered with our local school systems and our superintendents. And we used to have standardized cut scores on AccuPlacer. And what we have learned is that placed way too many people that would be successful in college level work into developmental. So we reformed it. To Candace's point, there was a Maryland Math Reform Initiative, for example, and we looked at creating pathways and reducing the barriers for students to get into college level math by creating statistics pathways. And we also looked at multiple different measures of what it took and to see if students would be able to complete that college level work in the language arts and in math. And we actually have been using as a practice between our LEAs and the community colleges, things like GPA. What their GPA is can determine whether or not they're ready for college level work. And we have data on whether that's been successful or not. And we found that it has been. And we've moved, I think, farther away from sort of those standardized cut scores on anything and looked at students' persistence performance overall. And I'm wondering, is there any aspects of that that's going into the study with AIR? Because what I'd hate is to have all this progress in getting students into college level work, to have a study that comes out that would potentially put students that we already know can be successful back into the developmental pathway.
Right. I would like to focus on the other study, but I will say quickly to your question, yes. So they're going to look at, so one part is the current standard or the preliminary standard, is that predictive? Should it be some other score? Should it be some other measure? So they're going to compare other high school measures to that and other ways of achieving, what's the good standard for CCR? So certainly they're going to look at multiple things.
That's great.
Okay.
And I know that, and Chandra, I'll follow up with you. We want to engage with you as you go forward with this second part of your study. And Chandra, if you're on this call, we'd love to have you all come to the presidents to share what you're just describing.
I am on the call. It's good to see you again, Bradley. Brad, as I know you. Yes, and I think I sent you an email saying that we would be happy to participate. Thank you.
Great.
So I think where we are right now is that we have this study and AIR is not sure who are the best people to contact at each of the schools to get this started.
So Matt, can I make a recommendation, and our segment leaders tell me if you do or do not like this. Can I make a recommendation that the AIR team start with our segment group here, particularly Candace, Brad, Matt, bring in Nancy Shapiro, and we start with just a small group of segmental representatives. We can give a bit of the history. We can talk through what is already in progress. You know, Brad can go into far more detail around the existing MOU. That would give, I think, AIR some groundwork. And then at that meeting, we can talk about how they want to proceed with going into more of the affinity groups and how we can navigate that so that they get a full perspective of what's been happening in Maryland around college readiness. How does everyone feel about that? How does that sound?
I like it.
Matt, does that work for you?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay. Candace.
Yeah, follow-up question. In going through the slides, I think I also saw that you were looking at science college readiness standards. And of course, science readiness standards will touch math too, right? So, you know, we're always, I'll just put the elephant in the room on the table, you know, algebra 2, right? You know, there it is. And so when you're looking at science readiness, it's like change the absolute. So I just wanted to make that on the agenda.
Science is tricky. Okay, so just to keep us moving, so I think you all tell me, Dr. Keys, do you want me to reach out to Dr. Yu, or do you want to be the representative for this work?
I think that we I think that we should have a representative from Morgan State, because I do think that we have a lot of work in the developmental space. I know you may have met Dr. Mfume and her group, and they really have worked on it, as well as Dr. Yu himself in the science space, because I know they use Alex to try to help. I think it was called Alex, a system that they used to try to help students, and it actually showed a significant improvement with the students that were coming in and going into sciences here. So I think Provost, you would definitely want to have some say about this.
Okay.
Or have a participant in this. And so whether that participant would be me or someone that's more familiar with that, we'll let the provost decide.
Okay, so I'll make Dr. Yu the primary for
Yes.
this initial discussion.
Thank
I'll
you.
see
Yeah,
you
he was
on
unable
it.
to attend today, and so he asked me to take notes on that. But yes, put him there, please.
Okay, perfect. So I'll do Brad, Candace, Nancy, Katie, Matt. Who am I missing? I feel like I'm missing someone.
And did you say Hung Tao Yu?
Yeah. Oh, and Dr. Yu. Yep, Dr. Yu. There we go.
Nancy Shapiro.
And Nancy Shapiro. Yep. So Matt, I will send you I'll give a formal response to your request with the names of everybody that I've just listed. I'll give you the email addresses for you to bump over to AIR, and then we can set up that initial meeting, and then we can that can then be the deep dive into what's already happening in the state for AIR to hear, and then move on to much more detailed focus groups.
All right.
Does that work for everybody? Okay, I see head
Sounds
nodding.
good.
That's how we will proceed.
Thanks for having us. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Dow, would you like to go ahead with the updates?
Sure. Thank you, everyone. These are quick updates. I know I sent a flurry of emails right before December 30th, and just wanted to verbally update everyone and make sure you're all on board with what's going on. We have a substantial modification work group that we're reviving. We sent out a memo again, right before the new year. If you can, please have names to me by January 20th. I do intentionally want to keep it a little bit of a smaller group, but the representatives are intended to go back out to their constituents to vet our discussions, provide feedback on what we're talking about as we consider revisions to what a substantial modification to an existing academic program should look like. So that's just a reminder. So any questions on substantial modification work group? Nope. Okay. Near completers. As you know, we have a near completer initiative at the agency. We also know that many of your campuses have near completer initiatives. We've got to do better, I think, in terms of aligning these initiatives. We're not quite sure how to do that. So we want to bring together people who do the near completer work on your campuses and figure out how our agency can align with what you all are doing and how the campuses can align with what we're doing. We're not replicating efforts. We are trying to give everybody the opportunity to finish out a degree. So we put that memo out. We'll have the meeting on January 27th. So if you can have names to me on January 18th, that would be helpful. Any questions on the near completer discussion? Okay. Save the date. We have a save the date coming up. As many of you already know, Pell Grants will be expanded to incarcerated individuals starting July 1, 2023. There's been a lot of activity between our agency and Maryland's Department of Public Safety and Corrections. And so we have gathered together. We will put together a statewide info session, if you will, on how this expansion will work, how campuses can become eligible, how programs can become eligible, how the campuses can work with DPSCS in Maryland to provide programs behind the wall or behind the fence. So we have a tentative hold for April 19th. We'll have representatives from U.S. Department of Ed present. This will likely be an in-person meeting. So please do a save the date. We're finalizing details this week in terms of location, but it'll be the greater Baltimore area. And we'll put out a formal save the date as soon as we finalize those details. But for your information, April 19th is what we have a hold for. Questions on any of that? Candace, please.
I mean, I don't know if this is helpful or not, but as you know, some schools already have successful programs like voucher. With USDE there, I mean, I think it's a little bit of a different conversation. I don't know, maybe in the frank ways we were challenged, but I didn't know if we were. And if so, just let us know.
Absolutely, yeah. DPSCS is very well aware of the successful programs that already exist. So UB is there, certainly Goucher's program. There are a number of other programs. I know Bowie's very engaged in working with DPSCS right now. So we'll definitely, but we want to make sure all the campuses know about this opportunity and can strategize accordingly as they see fit. So I am so sorry, I have a terrible cough. So April 19th. Another save the date that is forthcoming is probably for late April is we'll do another spring training for academic program review. So we did one back in the fall on November 1st. We'll do another one for late April, probably the last week in April. Again, we're just finalizing details and we'll put out a save the date sooner rather than later. It will probably not be a full day event. We'll probably either do just a morning or afternoon session. And that'll be open to all the campuses. So just something to put on your radar. Dr. Keys.
So, you know, from the last training, there were different slides and we got some things sent to us, but there was just like a small component of the slides and not the entire set. So I was hoping that we would be able to get all the slides from last semester's session sent to us if possible.
Sure. They are posted to our website, so I'll make
They
sure
are
you
posted
have
on-
all of
okay.
that information. I'll send you an email for that, Dr. Case. Not a problem.
Thank you.
Katie.
Yes, thank you. Could you clarify just a little bit, Emily, when you say academic program review, do you mean broadly writ, just kind of best practices, or is there something specific related to MHEC that you're describing?
Nope, it's just broadly academic program review for any new people that you have on the campuses, open questions, open dialogue.
Thank you.
We may be at that point be able to provide updates on where we are on substantial modification, depending on how the work group goes, those kinds of things. It's my intent that we start to do that twice a year. We start to do a training twice a year. So we'll see how it goes and see how this works. Excuse me for 1 minute.
Dr. Gantz, just a quick update. When we had the training session and review about 6 weeks ago, I asked the question, how many people were new in the room to academic affairs? Over a third of the people raised their hands. It could have been as much as half of the people were new in the last 3 years. So I think we're seeing, the significant rolling change that I think we'll all be better served if we keep everybody up to date and current.
Okay. Last thing on my list, just a brief reminder that today we asked for transfer implementation plans. I've gotten a number of the requests towards the end of today, early tomorrow morning. I'll go through the list and let you know if we're missing any from our public institutions. So just keep an eye out for an email. But I actually think most of the campuses were pretty on target this time around. So thank you for your efforts in following up with them. But just wanted to put that on your radar that we are going to take a look at those transfer implementation plans this week. So those are my updates. Just knowing that we may not meet again until after legislative session, I wanted to just take the opportunity and put all those things on your radar because many of those things will happen in April. So thank you to everyone for your support in making these things happen. We're excited about some of these initiatives and moving the work forward. And let me know if you have any questions on any of these issues as we kind of continue on over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, do we have any other questions for Dr. Dow before we move into just any updates from their members? Why don't we start with St. Mary's this time? Any institutional updates?
Just one, really, I would just say that we're in the middle of our strategic planning efforts right now. We've spent all of the fall working on establishing our strategic pillars. At this point now we're opening up the strategic planning kind of draft for both campus and community review. Our goal is to have the draft more fully realized by mid-spring semester and completed by early spring, and to have this really in place by the end of May. It's going to be all strategic planning all the time for St. Mary's. That's really our big update.
Great. And will that also involve an update to your mission statement or not? Or are they two separate things?
I believe it will, Secretary. I'm not entirely sure. Actually, I think that's part of the President's State of the College that will happen later on this month. So I'll have more intel for you when we speak next.
Okay, great.
And
thank you.
How long is your strategic plan? How many years?
3 years. It's a 3-year strategic plan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Keys.
Well, Morgan already has our, we have a strategic plan in place, our Transformation Morgan out to 2030. We are currently we have several different working groups that are working on efficiency measures, as I would call them, in order to make sure that we have the infrastructure to support the Transformation Morgan goals, which, one of our goals is ascendancy to an R1 institution. So we are working hard on that. This particular week, Academic Affairs is having our Faculty Institute. So faculty are back on campus this week. And so, as a matter of fact, today, the big deal today is the chairs, some chairs developmental leadership workshops that are happening today and tomorrow. And then the Faculty Institute starts Thursday and Friday with school meetings and department meetings on Friday. I mean, Wednesday and Thursday, Faculty Institute, and then department meetings on Friday. So we're just getting ready for that back to school thing, which is a big deal.
Great, thank you. Okay, Mac, Brad?
Yes, I have two updates. First, I'll start with, we have a new president at the College of Southern Maryland, Yolanda Wilson. She started January 1 of this year, and she comes from over 22 years of experience in academic work from Northern and South Carolina. But she was a resident and born in Prince George's County, so she's a Marylander, and we're thrilled that she's beginning her work here in College of Southern Maryland. The other update that I have is I am beside myself to announce that I have a new Director of Legislative Affairs. Many of you know Jody Callis, who has retired after 30 years of working in the field. She's owed some time with her grandchildren, so as much as we hate to see her go, we have a new person that will be starting on January 16th. Her name is Jontel Green. She's no stranger to Annapolis and the work of the legislature, so we're really excited for her to begin her work.
Okay, thank you. Matt, anything from MICUA?
Sure, just two quick things. I think it's been about a month that I've been here, so sort of just settling in and gearing up for a session, obviously. We just before my arrival, we lost our institutional researcher. So if any of you good people have great people on hand that you just want to loan over or just lend out, please let us know. It's a challenging environment to be recruiting in. Lastly, I'll just say I know everyone has lots of different opinions on the NCHEMS report, but I think a number of us are going to be seeing one another on January 26th for the hearing in the House. So since it hasn't been brought up, I just thought I'd note that and look forward to seeing all of you there and talking through the report and the issues. So it's good to see everybody again. Glad to be back and look forward to working with you productively.
Okay, any other updates that I missed? Well, a quick update for me. This is my last segmental meeting after 15 years in the private sector and 35 in the public, including higher ed, and with the two governors working together on a transition protocol. All the cabinet has resigned, effective tomorrow. Some may be out until the 18th. So that's going on. So the next meeting, you'll probably have maybe a permanent secretary, or if not, an acting secretary. But the main thing is, I just want to say thanks to each of you and your segments for the tremendous work that's happened in the last 8 years. It's been phenomenal what has been accomplished in higher ed, achievement across the board, and so many corners and nooks and crannies that people don't even think about until there's a problem. And I just really sincerely appreciate everyone's work. So with that, I'll be signing off.
Thank you, Secretary.
Thank you. Any other updates? Otherwise, meeting is adjourned.
Well, just let me say my thanks as well to you, Mr. Secretary, for your time and help in moving the issues. Lots of heavy issues, lots of progress on a number of fronts. So thank you so much for your time and help on moving some of our issues, especially.
And I'll just echo that. I'm sorry we won't get a chance to work together again, Jim. It was great the first round, and it's good to see you again. And congratulations and best of luck on your next endeavors.
Yes, well, thank you all. And it has been good to move so many issues forward, and it's all done with good people. That's what this is about, is the relationships and moving it forward. I think of, IMHEC and scholarships through all of your different organizations. Over 500,000 people, citizens, have been affected with scholarships in these last 8 years. That's 500,000 families. I mean, this is really good stuff going here. So I just wanted to say thank you all.
All best wishes.
Thank you.
Our next March 20th of 23. Bye-bye now.